Hey everyone, tonight we dive into the strange, bold, and sometimes browless realm of medieval beauty ideals. A time where the aim wasn't to seem vibrant, but rather like someone who'd just been gently fatigued. So, before you set line, take a second to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly love what I share here. Drop a comment below with your location and local time. It's always amazing to see who's watching from across the globe. Now, lower the lights. Maybe switch on a fan for that subtle hum, and let's glide into tonight's tale together. In the medieval era, pale skin wasn't a hint you needed rest. It was a style choice, a status boast, a quiet claim that screamed, "I'm too wealthy to oversee daylight. Thank you kindly." Unlike now, where a sun-kissed glow might imply yoga, juices, or a beach vacation, medieval beauty turned that upside down. Tan skin meant you toiled outdoors, which meant you were poor, which meant, shock, manual work. Nothing said not beautiful in the 1300s like knowing how to shear sheep. So, the paler you were, the loftier your social rank. And when we say pale, we don't mean a gentle creamy sheen, that we're talking ghostly porcelain with veiny hints. Skin so fair it's immediate just been spooked by a specter or one yourself. Of course, not everyone was naturally that pallid, especially if you had a functioning blood flow. So, people intervened. Noble women, and sometimes men, would dust their faces with white lead powder. It gave that coveted undead elegance, and, as a perk, slowly poisoned you. Beauty always had a cost. Some used vinegar-soaked rags to bleach their skin. Others applied a blend of ground pearls and egg whites, which not only whitened the face, but also left cheeks feeling like a frittata. Veins were sometimes drawn on arms and chests with blue dye to mimic frailty, because nothing said elite like skin that looked ready to tear. Even poetry joined in. Love verses praised women as pale as cream, white as frost, and one as the moonine winter. A poetic way to say she might collapse. I adore it. This pale look wasn't just cosmetic. It was a code for wealth, virtue, and total disconnection from farming. If you could afford to seem delicate, you were thriving. Medieval beauty demanded dedication. And by dedication, I mean a gradual, ornate self-toxification. For those chasing that prized pale look, nature alone didn't cut it. Southey turned to makeup, namely lead-based white face powder. Yes, lead, the stuff we now cordon off in old houses. But back then, it was cutting edge. The result? A flawless, matte, pale finish, the medieval version off the end foundation. It made skin look perfect and eventually feel very imperfect. White lead powder was crafted by mixing vinegar with metal, letting it corrode into a white crust, then grinding it into fine dust, applied daily, and presto, you glowed like a frail, noble soul with a hidden death wish. If your skin flaked, blistered, or peeled in tiny polite bits, even better. It meant the makeup was doing its job. This wasn't a step routine either. Many added mercury-based blush for color or chalk dust for staying power. Egg whites were brushed on for a glossy look. If it came from a farm or an alchemist's shelf, someone had slathered it on their face for elegance. The downside, beyond the obvious slow poisoning? Lead caused fatigue, ulcers, hair loss, and early death. Not listed in today's skincare labels. But the trend persisted because if the choice was dying slowly or being mistaken for a commoner, nobles often picked the slow, scenic route to the grave. Men weren't always exempt. Some court gentlemen used powders or skin treatments, especially in later medieval and early Renaissance courts, where image was nearly as vital as bloodline, or at least as vital as smelling less foul than your rival. Of all medieval beauty fads, the fixation on high foreheads might beta most startling. Literally, because people removed their eyebrows for it. A tall, smooth forehead wasn't just trendy. It was seen as graceful, wise, and holy. It was the facial equivalent of a grand cathedral. The perfect forehead said, "I spend my day spraying and gazing out castle windows, not wielding a hoe." To get this regal look, women went to extreme, often uncomfortable lengths. Eyebrows were plucked out entirely, and sometimes scalp hair was removed bit by bit to push the hairline back. This wasn't a quick tweak, it was a full forehead renovation. Medieval beauty guides suggested tweezers, hot cloths, and depilatory pastes made from cat dung, quicklime, or vinegar-soaked leeches, all to flaunt a forehead vast enough to map stars on. The results were dramatic. Portraits show women with calm faces and foreheads so wide you could stage a tournament on them. Paired with pale skin and delicate features, this highbrow look became a marker of refined beauty. Fashion backed it up. Tight hoods, wimples, and hennons, those iconic cone hats, pulled the hairline up or hid where brows once were. This wasn't just a noble quirk. From England to France to Italy, elite women embraced the high forehead, while poets and artists lauded faces that started near the scalp. Of course, not everyone had the time or tools to top up perfectly. So, some faked it, drawing their forehead higher and covering the rest with veils or bands. Yes, the Middle Ages had contouring. It just used more cloth. In medieval Europe, eyebrows weren't just ignored. They were eradicated. Today's trends celebrate bold brows, feathered arches, and social media tutorials. But in the 14th and 15th centuries, eyebrows were seen as a needed facial noise. To achieve the ideal, women plucked brows to near nothing or removed them completely. Why? A bare forehead was deemed elegant, and any hair growth disrupted the vibe. Brows were like weeds in the garden of the face. Some shaved the brow area entirely, ensuring no strand marred their pale, high glory. It's the kind of effort that would stun modern beauty gurus, especially since there were no brow pencils to redraw them. To remove brows, women used tweezers, wax, pumice stones, or, for the bold, mixes with quicklime, vinegar, or arsenic. Yes, arsenic, because nothing says beauty like risking a melted face. This wasn't a fleeting trend. Art, from manuscripts to paintings, shows noble women with smooth foreheads and eyes framed by bare skin. Serene or slightly eerie, depending on the light. The no-brow look wasn't universal. In some regions, thin or lightly arched brows lingered, especially with influences from the Middle East or Byzantine trade. But generally, if your brows were visible, you were missing the mark. Men, especially courtiers, sometimes trimmed brows for refinement, though full removal was rare and less lost in a fiery debate. What this shows is medieval beauty wasn't about looking natural. It was about looking sculpted, symbolic, and slightly angelic. Angels, after all, rarely have brows in art. Coincidence? Maybe, but it worked. In the Middle Ages, a hint of cheek color was prized, but like most things, it came with rules, risks, and a chance of eternal judgment. The ideal was a faint blush, like you dared a slightly risque verse or stepped outside briefly, but not long enough to tan, God forbid. A soft rose tint suggested youth, fertility, and survival, qualities admired, especially if you lived past 28. But you couldn't seem like you tried. Rouge was vain, and vanity was a step from sin. The church frowned on women painting their faces, unless they were nobles or did it meekly. A theological puzzle still unsolved. Still, women got creative. Common blush ingredients included beet juice, crushed berries, mulberries, or cochineal, a red dye from insects. Yes, bugs. Beauty was never gentle. Some rubbed cheeks for a natural flush. Others used red ochre or wine dregs, applied carefully to avoid detection by priests or nosy neighbors. For the rich, rouge might include red lead or cinnabar, both highly toxic. The mindset? I may die young, but I'll die rosy and respected. Rouge was dabbed on with cloth, fingers, or whatever wasn't used for cooking. Mirrors were scarce, so men relied on instinct or honest maids. Too much blush, and you risked being labeled a harlot or, worse, a French courtier. The goal was subtle enhancement, not stage makeup. If someone praised your glow, you denied it, blaming the breeze. Even nuns sometimes wore discreet rouge on feast days, because nothing says devotion like a hint of beet behind the veil. In medieval Europe, if your hair didn't shimmer like it was blessed by angels, you were already behind. Blonde hair was the ideal, tied to youth, beauty, and virtue, and, for extra clout, the Virgin Mary, often painted blonde despite her likely dark hair. Realism wasn't the point, radiance was. If you were born blonde, you were lucky and probably skipped a few tasks. But natural blonde faded, so women took action, often with cauldrons. Homemade lighteners used saffron, chamomile, ash, honey, and lye, applied and baked in the sun via sunbasking. It worked if you had a saint's patience and lizard skin. Some recipes included urine for color lifting, whose urine wasn't specified, but if it gave celestial shine, it was worth it. Beauty has always been a bit gross. Hair texture mattered too. Long, wavy locks were ideal, flowing like a holy curtain, but only for unmarried women. Once wed, your golden hair was hidden under veils, nets, or wraps, as if it became a state secret post-vows. Noble women braided or twisted hair into ornate styles for court or church, often with silk ribbons, beads, or embroidery to signal they didn't herd goats. Men wearing texcluded, thick, golden locks were praised in poetry. Knights with flowing hair were medieval shampooed stars that in medieval Europe, hair was like wealth. If you had it, you didn't flaunt it unless seeking a spouse. Unmarried women wore hair long and loose, symbolizing purity, though not too loose, unless aiming for a mystic woodland vibe, acceptable only for saints or martyrs. Once married, hair was locked away tighter than a convent's wine stash. Veils, wimples, nets, and coifs formed a modesty arsenal that could hide even the brightest blonde under layers of drab linen. These coverings were practical too, shielding hair from smoke, lice, or rogue-barred compliments. The devout layered up, a coif cap under a veil, pinned beneath a wimple wrapping the chin. You looked like a holy, bundled parcel, and that was the point. But fashion demanded more than function. Nets gleamed with gold thread, veils were starched into shapes, and some wore silk braid cages with jewels or bells, because nothing says subtle like jingling when you turn. Concealed hair tied to morality. A covered head was virtuous, but exposed hair on a wife could earn harlot comparisons or, worse, French labels. Some women rebelled, letting a curl slip or wearing sheer veils that technically counted while showing dyed strands. Medieval loopholes thrived if medieval beauty had one silent rule. It was, taller is grander, not your height, but your headwear. By the 1400s, women across Europe adopted a trend that literally lifted their look. The hennin, those towering cone hats that seemed designed by steeple-obsessed architects. The hennin wasn't just a hat. It was a status ladder you wore, reaching up to 2 feet or more among French and Burgundian elites. The taller the hennin, the higher your rank, and the more dorframsius you hit on route to supper, made of silk, velvet, or brocade. Hennins used wire frames for their sleek shape. A sheer veil often flowed from the tip, adding drama, mystery, and a fire hazard near candles. Fitting hair into these was a skill. Hair was braided and stuffed into the cone, or foreheads were shaved for fit, because forehead space was prime real estate. Comfort, not a priority. Hennins weren't the only height obsession. Some wore heart-shaped escapins, like croissants glued to the head, or butterfly hennins with veil wings. Great for flair, bad for storms. Commoners stuck tovials, caps, or circlets. Simpler, safer, less likely to be mistaken for a catapult. Clergy and conservatives grumbled, warning that such displays invited sin, vanity, or neck pain. Yathinins endured among the wealthy, like most bad but chic ideas in history. Men avoided cone hats but had their own flair, feathered caps, fur hoods, and pointy shoes that doubled as weapons in medieval times. A woman's ideal body wasn't strong, curvy, or fit. It was meant to look fragile, modest, and possibly mid-faint. The goal was a slim, soft, ethereal frame, like someone living on dew, sonnets, and 1 fig weekly. Beauty guides didn't urge strength or stamina. The only lifting was a veil and a coy gesture, followed by a swift glance away, maybe a swoon. But it wasn't about seeming ill. The sweet spot was between 2 weak-dough lift a pail and able to stream a lute while seated at a willowy figure signaled nobility, as work bred broad shoulders and muscle, curses of labor. The focus was a slim waist, gentle curves, and an air of divine weariness. Dresses cinched below the bust, an early empire waist, to lengthen the torso and suggest frailty. Tight lacing with kirtles or surcoat shelped if nature didn't. Being too thin wasn't ideal either. In famine or plague, gauntness hinted at death. A touch off-roundness in face or hips signaled health and fertility. If you looked like you'd survive winter and still write poetry, you nailed it. Diet tips were odd. Eat fennel for digestion, rose petals for breath, wine for skin glow. Protein? Only if feathered. Men could be sturdier, broad shoulders, strong legs, able to wield a sword without falling. But nobles favored lean frames with poised posture, not brute force in the Middle Ages. A woman's eyes were her quiet strength. Medieval flirty emojis, with more soul and less winking. Ideal eyes were large, clear, and deep, whispering, "I'm virtuous," with a touch of sorrow. Think eyes that seemed to have seen humanity's fall and were still gracefully coping. Poets loved them, calling eyes glowing orbs, heavenly dew, or pools of faith. They skipped bloodshot, itchy, or "I was up churning butter" vibes. Light eyes, blue or gray, were prized in Northern Europe, tieto innocence and purity, assuming you hadn't seen too much. In Southern Europe, dark eyes shone if paired with noble blood and a dowry. Enhancing eyes was tough. No eyeliner, just soot and hope. Some dabbed black powder on lashes for bigger eyes, risking irritation or the first smoky eye accident. Most relied on candlelight or downward glances for virtue. Tripping over cats optional. Teary eyes were admired, hinting at piety or sensitivity, like you'd just prayed or read a cased epic. No artificial tears, but smoke or mild shame worked. Eye contact was tricky. Too much was bold or French. Too little, shifty, or possessed. The art was glancing up from lowered lids, like you knew scripture but stayed humble. That "let's talk medieval" breath. Rarely sung by knights, for good reason. Dental care was a dream, and many freshness wasn't a thing unless you loitered near herbs. Yet sweet breath was desired, hinting at youth, health, and no garlic eel breakfast, though most had it. Women improvised, chewing parsley, fennel, cloves, or cinnamon sticks. Pre-mint gum.it didn't whiten teeth, but made kissing less daunting. Apothecaries offered herbal pastes or rinses with sage, vinegar, or myrrh, used sparingly due to cost and modesty. Toothbrushing wasn't common. Teeth were wiped with cloth, rubbed with chalk or herbs, or scrubbed with chew sticks, twigs that cleaned and doubled os fidgets during bad poetry. Halitosis wasn't romantic but wasn't shocking. Everyone had it, and survival trumped odor. Noble women kept distance in talks, limited affection, and fanned themselves to seem pensive. A pomander, herb philodorb, helped mask smells when waved discreetly. Today, a smile lights up apps. In the Middle Ages, it was risky, used sparingly, like spices or uprisings. Why? Teeth ranged from iffy to terrifying by 30, so hiding them was wise. This wasn't neglect. Decay thrived on bread, porridge, mead, and no floss or fluoride. Sugar was rare, but starches ruined teeth. Dental work? Think pliers and prayers. Still, a healthy smile was quietly valued. Rare and tieto youth or miracles. But big grins weren't chic. A closed-lip smile said, "I'm pondering a hymn," not "I'm ecstatic." Some used sage, salt, or coral powders to clean teeth. Mildly effective, mostly abrasive, like brushing with sand. Teeth were tolerated, not flaunted. Art rarely showed open smiles. Even saints kept lips shut, wary off dental reveals that men's teeth weren't ballad material either. Knights won hearts with jaws, not grins. Troubadours sang of eyes, hair, hands, not breath or bite. Medieval men's beauty had odd rules, not Adonis-level chiseled, but not like you tumbled off a cart. The ideal was tall, lean, broad-shouldered, and nobly aloof. Not too muscular. That hinted at work, but not soft, suggesting sloth or too much ale. You looked ready to swing his sword, but only if your squire was occupied. A sharp jaw, high cheekbones, and straight nose were prized. Think manuscript prints, not village brute. Beards or clean-shaven faces worked if deliberate, not lost in woods vibes. Hair was shoulder length, styled, with curls favored in courts. Some men used curling irons or rinses for shine, because nothing says, "I'm above labor," like a page styling your bangs. Clothing shaped the male form. Padded shoulders, cinched waists. Fitted tunics emphasized posture. Nobles glided, never slouched, with a hint of scorn. Muscles were fine if not earned hauling barrels. War was noble, labor wasn't. The look was effortless. You didn't try to be hot. You were born noble, and that was enough. Think medieval cool without effort, but with land and a hawk instead of a gym past. In an era where baths were optional and plumbing a fantasy, scent control was an art, not a spritz off perfume, but a survival tactic. People bathe, but not often, depending on century, place, and plague rate. To avoid offending noses, humane or holy, men and women used herbs, oils, and scent pouches. The pomander, a metal ball on a chain, filled with cloves, rosemary, or rose powder. Wassa portable odor shield, like a medieval air freshener grenade. Nobles scented gloves, handkerchiefs, combs, even hair with floral waters or vinegar blends that beat sweat and despair. Sweat was real. Heavy garments, hot summers. No deodorant. Linen layers absorbed it, washable unlike wool or silk. Herbal sachets stuck in clothes fought odor with fragrant hope. Bathhouses existed early and late, but church bans on shared nudity curbed hygiene zeal. Dry bathing, wiping with cloth and scented water, was common and barely refreshing. Some stuffed petals in shoes or herbs in bed linens to smell like a garden visitor. In medieval Europe, beauty wasn't just looks. It was moral that a lovely face could be a divine gift, a social tool, or a devil's snare. Sometimes all three be dawn. Clear skin, symmetry, pale glow signaled virtue. Beauty meant you were blessed, chosen, or at least not a thief. Poets and preachers tied looks to a pure soul. But if you knew you were beautiful or used it, you were suspect. Vanity was sinful, and caring too much about looks hinted at pride, seduction, or French flair. Sermons warned women's beauty tempted men. Eve's fault, carried for a millennium. Makeup, stray hair, or flirty lashes could brand you immoral or demonic. Some thought beauty was witchcraft, glamour to mislead men. Dramatic, but bad crops could get you burned. Plain looks could imply moral flaws or divine disfavor. Beauty was grace. Ugliness punishment. This was confusing. Be lovely, but not too much. Glow virtuously, but avoid pride, and never outshine Thellard's wife. That led to convents or sudden illness. Medieval beauty was a moral tightrope, balanced with lead dust and prayers. The Persian immortals swear more than elite soldiers. They wear a symbol of imperial might, precision, and endless renewal. Born under Cyrus the Great in the 6th century BCE, as Persia grew from local power to a vast empire, Cyrus knew an empire needed a core, not just clerks, but a force to project strength, inspire loyalty, and crush revolts with ease. Thus, the immortals emerged. Their name wasn't just flair. It was a logistical and mental triumph. Herodotus says their count stayed at 10,000. When one died, fell sick, or was hurt, another took his place. The number never faltered. To foes, they seemed undiminished, unweakened, deathless. Myth or math, the name stuck. Immortality wasn't about one man's survival. It was the eternal pulse-off Persian power. These weren't random recruits. Immortals came from noble Persian families or loyal elites. Training started young. Discipline was harsh. Loyal Tito, the king absolute. They were warriors and models of Achaemenid values. Order, obedience, calm under fire. Dressed in fine robes, scale armor, armed with spear, bow, sword, and wicker shield. Their look was planned austere tactics. Persian kings sent not just fighters. Buta silk and steel political signal. From Lydia's plains to Egypt's sands, wherever Persia spread, immortals followed, behind kings, beside thrones, at battle's front. Seeing them meant facing the empire's heartbeat. They didn't flinch, didn't retreat, didn't fade, and that made them terrifying. The immortals' look was no chance. It was mental warfare. Unlike Greek hoplites in heavy bronze, immortals seemed otherworldly, a tide of ornate shadows sweeping the land. Embroidered tunics, trousers in red sand purples, color-soft command. Hid-scale armor off bronze or iron, flexible but deadly. Wicker shields, light yet sturdy, deflected arrows and blows. Their felt tiara caps, sometimes veiling faces, hid identity. Unlike Greeks praising personal glory, immortals thrived in sameness. 10,000 men moving silently, armada alike, overwhelmed senses like a death curtain falling. Each carried a short spear, bow with arrows, and sword. Their agility shone. They marched provinces without breaking ranks, fought in open fields or guarded courts. Light gear ensured speed, potent enough to iron killed. It wasn't raw force. It was consistency, never wavering, never vulnerable. With drums pounding and dust rising, their calm faces moved in sync. No roars, just eerie precision, like machine-saw flesh, ritual, and fear. Facing them wasn't just death. It was facing a force that endured without pity. Being an immortal wasn't just a role. It was a life, a status, a sentence. Revered, richly paid, but with immense pressure, they lived under watch. Their food, clothes, home state supplied, not kindness, but dominance. They belonged to the empire, not families. Most were Persian, Median, or Elamite. Loyal sons could rise with discipline, training begging in youth. Archery on horseback, enduring pain, marching in step, obeying instantly. Glory-seeking was punished. Unity was all. Discipline ruled. Dawn wake-ups, silent drills, weapon care, communal meals, soft meat, bread, dates, wine were modest, built for endurance. Off campaign, they guarded kings, watched for assassins, and kept order in volatile zones. Their presence hushed treason in halls. They could marry, but duty called any time. No hesitation. A falter mint replacement. The number stayed 10,000, no pause. This cold system fed their mythos, tools of empire, polished to duty alone. Cyrus birthed them, Darius perfected them. Rising in 522 BCE amid plots, Darius used them to cement rule. They weren't just guards. They were royal authority, tied to order and inevitability. He flaunted them at festivals, stationed them in Persepolis, sent them on missions. Always same, always seen, composed. Darius reshaped tactics. Immortals joined archers, cavalry in strikes, trained in bows, sieges, and coordination. Greeks noted their arrow volleys and slow advance behind shields, never breaking. They crushed rebels in Elam, Babylon, Scythia, punishment and message. Vikings will ice eternal. Their darker fame grew. Fear stools, carved in stone at Persepolis, stylized, eternal. Darius made them fear itself, gold rapid silence. Under Xerxes, immortals hit their legend shite, tested at Thermopylae 480 BC. This clash wasn't just armies. It was Persian order versus Greek defiance. Xerxes brought a vast army. Immortals, Ash's spearhead. Their fame preceded them. 10,000 deathless elite at Thermopylae. Leonidas's few thousand Greeks, with 300 Spartans, held the pass. That on day 2, Xerxes sent immortals to break them. It should have been a rout, but the tight pass limited their bows. Short spear scalp reached past Greek dories. For hours, Spartans in locked shields fought, trained for this. Immortals fell heavily. Herodotus gleed they failed like others. It wasn't just loss. Their myth cracked, gods in silk bled. Yet they adapted, regrouped, marched on. Immortality was endurance, not victory. The immortals' true immortality wasn't magic. It was bureaucracy, cold, relentless administration. That a fallen immortal was replaced instantly. No rights, just substitution. The 10,000 never dipped. This was design. A pool off trainees, young men drilled, ready to fill gaps, kept in capitals, rotated until called. Records tracked all. Hazarapidus, 1,000 leaders, oversaw supply, discipline, recruitment. 10 commanders, with scribes and quartermasters, ensured gear, food, care. Lose a man in Egypt? A replacement sent. Break Oleg in Media? Another's ready. This system projected dread. Kill one, another steps up. The man didn't matter. The presence was eternal. A hydra off disciplinarian silk. Even off-field, it worked. Disloyal families lost men, replaced quietly. The machine never paused. It strengthened endless motion. Immortals weren't just soldiers. They were envoys in armored, in Achaemenides. Force was presence. They entered courts not to fight, but awe. 10 men in gold-laced silk. Silent, unreadable. They didn't threaten. They existed. Diane. Satrapies, they reminded rulers off power. Watching, sedition fade at their sight. That in court. They guarded during feasts, noras, but also spied, sniffing treason. Some say they were an intelligentsia arm. Loyalty enforcers. This duality, warrior, diplomat, enforcer, symbol, was their strength. They fought wars without blades, sending fear and awe. The king sees. The empire endures. Resistance is futile. Empires fade. So did their legend. By the Achaemenid send. Immortals were feared but not unbroken. The system rusted, not ally. But with creeping laxity, kings grew soft, more courtly, and immortals shifted from fighters tournaments. Under Artaxerxes or Darius III, standards fell. Nobles pushed unfit sons into ranks. Uniformity lacked soul. This showed when Alexander invaded in 334 BCE, Agamemnon 331 BCE. Immortals defended Darius III, but Alexander's phalanxes outflanked him. They fought bravely but fell. The myth died. Replacements faltered. The system broke. When Alexander took Persepolis, immortals were gone. But their story lived. Alexander adopted Persian ways. Sasanianites echoed them. Their blueprint, an eternal force, endured. Immortals inspired beyond their time. Greeks mixed awe with unease. Herodotus named them for their endless renewal. To Greeks, war was personal. Immortals were eerie, machined. Romans, Byzantines, Arabs admired their order. Sasanian cavalry revived their name. 10,000, elite, feared. Napoleon studied them. Modern media twists them into demons, but they were human. Terrifying Lyso, shaped by training, control, and myth. Their weapon? The Idiathedalwascum, an eternal shadow. Before Greek Amazons, Scythians ruled the Eurasian steppe. Nomads feared from Black Sea to Altai. Unlike others, women rode, shot bows, fought wars. Not exceptions. Culture. Herodotus marveled. Tribes where women Kaleto wed. Kyrgyz in Ukraine, Kazakhstan. Russia reveal women with swords. Bows. Scars. One had an arrow in her spine. Armored, buried richly. Her weapons weren't props. Scythian life demanded mobility. All rode, hunted, fought. Girls learned arrows like boys. Wore trousers, armor. Tattoos, same in battle. Gender bent in fields, strict home. Women killed at gallop, then did rites. Greek Amazon Smith, Scythiansreal. Fought Persians, Greeks, Macedonians, roamed with fury. In Dahomey. Benin, women terrified foes. Agagogi, royal guard. French called Amazons that by 1700s, 1800s, they were elite infantry, not just guards. From hunters or attendants, they became feared. Young girls, picked for strength, trained harshly. Thorn courses, live blades, celibacy oaths. They wore sashes, carried muskets, machetes. Their weapon? Fearlessness. French saw them rip throats, calmly wipe blades. In 1890 wars, Agagogia faced French, outgunned but raided, ambushed, fought streets. Their grits hooked colonizers. In patriarchal world, the carved autonomy. Advised kings, shaped policy with blades. French won, but Agagogia live in legend, inspiring Dora Camillage in Japan's 1200s. Tomo Guzan, samurai, rode through Gunpei War. Not a consort. She led, fought with sword, bow. Heike Monogatari praises her beauty, pale skin, long hair, then her might. Archer, swordswoman worth 1,000, beauty and death fused. Serving Yashinaka, maybe lover, she. Led in Kyoto's fight, Ieyasu, 1184, facing doom. She fought, beheaded a foe, Rodion. Her end? Captured, wed, or none, or vanished. Her legend lives in heater, folklore, a woman defying patriarchy with steel. In 1st century Rome, Boudica, Celtic queen, shook empire. Wife of Iceni, King Persudigus, a Roman puppet. His death led to Roman theft, her flogging, daughter's rape. Instead off-breaking, she burned. In 60 to 61 CE, she united tribes, led from chariot, spear in hand, torque gleaming. Her armor raised Camulodunum. Londinium, killed 70,000. Romans, led by Paulinus, lured her to battle. Discipline 1. Boudica poisoned herself. Her loss grew her fame. Romanced murder grit. Britons made her resistance faced in Mongol 1200s. Kudelin, Genghis' great-great-granddaughter. Awed all, daughter of Kaidu, rival to Kublai. She trained like aprons. Archery, riding, tactics. Her wrestling shone. She'd marry only Amon who beat her. None did. She won 10,000 horses, a fortune. She fought with Kaidu, led troops, advised him. Nearly his heir. Nobles resented her power. Kedukosi another, but her fame, Marco Polo Steiger princess, endured. In 1400s France, Joan of Arc, peasant girl, led army. Sat 17 voices, saints, urged her to free France. Crown Charles VII, her claim won her as in armor. Banner high, she rallied d'Orleans, lifted siege. Victories led to Charles' crown. Captured in 1430, tried for heresy, mince clothes. Burned at 19 to her death made her saint. Legend in 1860s Japan. Nakano Kiko, last Anabu geisha, fought Boshin War. Born 1847, scholarly, she mastered Naginata, Samura women's blade that in 1868, she led women's sunite. Joshitai, in Azu.in battle, she killed with skill, shot, beheaded be her sisterdo, avoid capture. Buried with her sword, her statues stand, defying change, death in World War II, Ludmila Pavlichenko, Lady Death, Soviet sniper, racked 309 kills. Born 1916 Ukraine, she joined Red Army at 24, refused nurse role, and in Odessa, Sevastopol, she hunted officers, snipers, with steel nerves. Her tally sent Herdo to US, UK, befriending Roosevelt's post-war, historian, trainer, hero of Soviet Union. For every Boudica, Tomo, countless women's tales faded. History mail. Writ, erased them. Trunk sisters, Vietnam, 40 CE, road elephants, Rilid 3-year Sagan's China. Yas Senawa, Ashanti, 1900, led against British for Golden Stole, Viking shield maidens, Apache Lozan, all broke war smale myth. Theostorius reserve face, reminding. Historius Wat Sarah said that in Mesopotamia, music was ritual, power, the lyre, 500 years old. From UR, was gold, lapis, bull-headed, strength symbol. Played with fingers, its shunting tones said heptonic scales. In temples, lyres joined him stoanana. In Lil, in graves, Thagai deaded sowls. Musicians. Some priestesses were respected. Replicas to decadi cert beauty. Greek hollows, double pipe dreed, was wild. Dionysus' voice, not Apollo scomlyre. Played in theater, marches, rituals, its bagpipe-like sound stirred blood. Circular breathing warped faces, but players swear revered. Platyfuridits emotion, yet its sorrow, fury, euphoria lived that in China, Guqin, Gujing. Zither softy nasties. Guqin Savin strings whispered balance. Played by Confucius. Gujing S16-21 string sanjimpalaces, operas. Gukin forscholars, guzzing for women. Bafti de virtue. Today. Their sound. In Egypt. Music quasicard. Harps for afterlife. Sistrum for hather. Flutes, clarinets, drums jointed rituals. Women chantress shelled powered, music quas eternity stung. African drums, talking drums, spoke news, summoned spirits. Gem, dun-dun, crafted sacredly, drove dance, memory, rhythms shape hideous paramisic that enhance, sycupamps, flutiscaldrain, honored son. Hocketing reflect tedwality. Most whistling vessels blended water, sound. Inca music market life, war. Today, Highland flutising in India, music was cosmic. OM's vibration, Vedic semantients, Vina, Bansurity ed to gods, Mrudangam, tabla mirrored heartbeats, Ragas to redrusa, emotioned India's music lives, divined in Mesoamerica, music was power, Huhudaldrums, Tepanastla sang fate, flutes, death whistle sterified, music drove sacrifice, fed gods, it transformed. Ancient music lives, Guqin, drums, Secukra millennia, heptonic scales, Greek modes fid modern harmony, Lyritogator, Allastubo. Music's purpose, ritual, healing, endures, sound is sacred, rhythm memory, melody thread to ancestors. Listen.